Okay, 5, 4, 3, 2.
Hola, ¿qué tal, amigos de Minnesota Latin Radio? Les doy la bienvenida a Entérate Minnesota. Y hoy me acompaña, hoy tengo una entrevista muy importante, espero que todos pongan mucha atención porque tengo a nada más y nada menos que a la candidata que va a competir con Ilan Omar para el distrito número 5. Hello, amigos de Minnesota Latin Radio. I welcome you to Get Informed Minnesota. And today I have a special guest, and I want you to pay a lot of attention because this lady next to me is Latonia Reeves, and she's challenged Ilan Omar position in district number 5. How are you, Latonia?
I am blessed. How are you?
You are blessed.
Yes.
I like that.
Yes, thank you.
It's great to hear that. Thank you. We are actually very blessed,
Amen.
are we?
Yes.
Amen.
Yes.
I am very excited to have you.
Thank you.
I think this is a very important time in Minnesota.
Yes.
We are in the eyes of the world right now.
Yes.
Everybody's looking at Minnesota, not necessarily for good things.
Yes.
So it's very interesting that you are now and you announced your candidacy a few weeks ago.
Yep.
And I'm very excited to get to know you. And I want the Latino community to know you. We have allowed about 30,000 followers.
Okay.
So tell us, who is Latonia Reeves?
Well, first, thank you for having me. I was born and raised in North Minneapolis. I am a lifelong Minnesotan. I have 3 children, 2
Ooh.
grandchildren, 2 grandgirls. The
Beautiful.
joy of my life.
Of course.
But I've been working in public service in the community for 2 decades. I'm currently a probation officer. I do a lot of things around public safety. I sit on the Citizen Guidelines Commission. I was appointed by Governor Walz in 2023. I do a lot of things around police reform, police oversight, just being in community, and which has truly been a blessing. I am a lifelong learner. I have a bachelor's degree in political science and sociology of law.
Wow.
I have a master's degree in criminal justice, and I have working on my doctorate in criminal justice. And so I love to learn. I love to explore, find new ways to look at research. How can we fix the problems that we have in our district, in our state, in this country? So being a lifelong learner, I want to take some of the skills that I have in policy and legislative research and reform and bring that to CD5 at the national level. So just love being in community. I have been truly blessed to be in community.
Well, I have to say you have a very impressive background.
Thank you.
Great education. You are a Minnesotan. You
Yes.
are from here. You grow and have a lot of experience in the law and keep people in the law. So that's great. What inspired you to run, and especially in that position that Ilan Omar have make news internationally? So what inspired you to run?
Community. I was asked no less than 100 times to run for this seat. Me and my passion for politics and for policy, I'm actually a Hubert Humphrey Policy Fellow for 23-24. So I got the opportunity to go to DC and kind of see how it works. And
Right.
It's kept the fire going. My first love was politics, but I got into mortgages, and then I got into working for the county and working in public service. And then now I'm coming back to my first love, which is politics. Inspired me to run is the rhetoric I'm seeing in community with disregarding community members. The Minneapolis convention was very, very challenging to folks. But when I saw Representative Omar make a statement in the newspaper, basically saying that her preferred candidate should get the endorsement and that we're discriminating against that particular candidate because people didn't vote for him. My thing was we want to make sure the process is fair. And when you disregarded a whole community of people in Ward 5, when the candidate book went missing, no one knew where it was. They disregarded community by saying, you know what, we don't care that people's votes weren't counted. We had other delegates, over 170 delegates whose votes were not counted. It's not saying it was anyone's fault. We just want to make sure the process is fair. Democrats want to make sure the process is fair. That didn't happen. And there was rhetoric saying, oh, well, we don't care about that. We just want our result. I'm not looking to disregard anyone. And oftentimes our elected officials are in community, but there are some that disregard those that you don't hear from. And I want to be a candidate that everyone can hear from. I want to be a candidate that listens to everyone, who brings people into the conversation. It's unacceptable to me that people's votes only count during November and they don't count at other times. So there's been many things that inspired me to jump into this race the continued disregard for people, the continued rhetoric in community about personal agendas, what matters more than others. I want to
Mhm.
be someone that says, even if I don't agree with you, I can sit down and have a conversation with you. We can
Yes.
come to common agreement. I've been a union president for several years, and I represent a wide gamut of people. And in that space, I've learned to have conversations and hear from everyone, no matter what their political background is, to figure out best ways to solve the issues that we have. I want to bring that to CD5. We currently don't appear to have that. Some people are disregarded. Some others are, your vote doesn't matter because you don't show up. I see that happening when we have rhetoric saying, we don't care what the results are. We want a results driven process. Well, I want a fair process. I want everyone to
100%.
be heard, no matter what that decision is. I don't want to be the person that comes to community 2 days before an election, 2 weeks before an election, and say, hey, we need your vote. No, I want to hear from you months
Months
before, a
before.
year before. What are we doing wrong? What can we be doing better to serve you? Because this is a service role, it's not a personal agenda role. And oftentimes I see too many personal agendas in politics. So it has inspired me to run. I definitely love what I do now. I love being at my job. I love helping community members. Um, but now I think I could take it to the national level and help as much as I can.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's very nice. I literally can agree with you. I think if we actually ask all the community, all the people of Minnesota, we want safety cities. We want good schools, good educations. We want less taxes, and we want to be quality. The jobs that we can have a reasonable income to have for our necessities without struggle over and over. And I think it does not matter the color of our skin when it comes to who is the right candidate or the right leader. It has to be because that person is qualified, not because that person is from this community or this color. This DEI to me was not helpful because sometimes they, in the order to try to help people, we select people who wasn't qualified for the job.
So I look at it a little bit differently because DEI is meant to give a hand up to the same qualified candidates. And I think we had a perspective when people say DEI, they automatically think black to some.
No, no, no,
Yeah,
not for
but
me.
the
But yeah,
DEI is giving a hand up to two equally qualified candidates, and we're saying, okay, well, they're qualified, but we'll give a hand up to this one because they're underrepresented in our current workspace. Of course, there's been instances where people have said people have gotten a job because they were meeting a quota, but
right.
for most part, DEI was meant to give a hand up, and the beneficiary of DEI for the most part was white women, right?
Mhm.
Because women were underrepresented in community or in jobs for many, many years
Right.
after the war. So I think DEI, the purpose of it, I think was meant to be good.
Yes.
I think
Yes.
it got
Exactly.
weaponized in some spaces, but it definitely
Exactly. That was
benefited
what I
others.
meant.
Yeah,
I know the intention was good, but then was used for in the
yeah,
wrong way. And
yeah.
but I wanted to ask you. So as you know, right now in Minnesota, we've been dealing this for at least I believe almost 8 years.
Mhm.
We have an overspending problem, high in taxes. Now it's a huge fraud, $1 billion plus in fraud. We have high crime. Um, it's very hard to defend the last 6 years of record. It's very hard because literally we went to surplus safety community to now have a deficit, fraud, high taxes, lower education. Um, so what will you be doing different than Illinois?
Well, the one thing is listening to community to see what the needs are, and not putting my personal agenda into the conversation. And when it comes to fraud, Minnesota has had a lot of fraud. We all see the news
Yes.
over saying over $1 billion. What I keep telling community members that I'm talking to about this is Democrats had the best intentions when it came to 23 a year. They wanted to get money out the door to really help community. The issue is the execution was horrible, and now we have a highway full of open door of people committing fraud because they're taking advantage of the system. As a probation officer, what has been really challenging is now clients are not getting access to services because a few decided to take advantage and steal money from taxpayers. that were helping community. So now the conversation is, well, I don't want my tax dollars going towards these programs because there's fraud. I mean, I get that. That's a reasonable thought. If you're hearing about $1 billion in fraud, but you can't afford eggs or you can't afford the food to feed your family, there's going to be people that are going to be very upset about that, right? But what do we need to do to fix that? We need to have a national office of accountability when it comes to these programs. We need to fund programs that help community, but they need to be done in such a way that people are actually getting the benefit of the money. We don't know right now who is getting the benefit of all the money that came into community because all we see on the news is $1 billion went out the door and community members are not being serviced. We have an issue with chemical dependency in this state. We have an issue with fentanyl coming into the state, which then causes higher crime, right? But if we don't have access to the money for the programs to assist them, these problems are going to continue. So we have to fund these programs, but we can't fund it if we have people taking the money and stealing it from taxpayers. They need to be held accountable for their actions.
Exactly.
In office, I want to make sure we're looking at accountability, affordability, and making sure that everyone is heard. Constituent services. We have people literally right now that do not feel that our current Congresswoman listens to their concerns unless there's agreement.
Yeah.
We can't have selective representation in CD5.
That is
the representation has to be for everyone.
Equal, yeah.
Even if I do not agree with you, you deserve to be represented. You deserve to have your taxpayer dollars spent in such a way that truly helps community. Because for the most part, I believe Democrats in this state, I'm a Democrat through and through. Democrats want their money. They don't mind paying taxes as long as it goes to the right thing. I don't mind giving extra money for taxes, and I'm a public servant. But I want to make sure it's being spent wisely. And so again, I think the execution was off, but the intention was there to really help community. And we need to figure out how to do this better. This cannot continue. The people that are doing this fraud need to be put in jail or held accountable in some way for their actions. 200 million here, 50 million there. It's astronomical numbers that we're talking about. And then we're hearing that it's not done, that there's still more fraud to be uncovered.
No, I mean, it's just the beginning.
If that's the case, then what they all deserve, though, is due process. They all deserve their day in court. They all deserve, if they're found guilty of the offense, then you're held accountable for it. If you're not found guilty for the offense, it is what it is. We have a judicial process for that. But if you're found guilty for stealing millions of dollars from taxpayers, there needs to be accountability for that. And not just restitution. Because how is someone going to pay back 20, 30, 50, $100 million? The taxpayers have now been harmed, and they don't deserve that. We need to be making sure we're having a conversation with folks. This is what happened. We didn't want this to happen. No one wants someone to steal millions of dollars. But now we know it's happened, so we need to make stopgaps in place to make sure it never, ever happens again. And that's the responsibility of who's ever in power. But in particular, if I win this office, I want to make sure I'm working with state partners. How can we assist at the federal level to make sure this doesn't happen again? And how can we make sure at the federal level that you get the services that you need through funding to really help community? Because you cannot affect public safety without looking at public safety from the big realm. It's not just police, it's housing, it's income, it's employment, it's everything. That's how you affect public safety, and that's how you affect people that they can live and thrive instead of just surviving.
You know, I like what you say. I want to ask you two things. You mentioned you are a Democrat, right? Yes. And you say you want to represent people regardless their political party.
Absolutely.
You know, because we know your district is very diverse. Yes. We have Latinos, Somalian, Hmong, we have African American, and white people, yeah. Right? And you have Democrats, independents, yeah. And Republicans.
Yeah.
So how are you gonna unite? How are you gonna reach a Republican, for example? What you will do so they feel comfortable reaching out to you?
I am a collaborator and a bridge builder. In the number of jobs that I've had over the years, especially working in public services as a probation officer, I deal with a wide gamut of populations of community, from the communities that you named. And I get them working with them when they're at their most challenging day, right? So you have to find ways to work with all different kind of community members, recognizing their cultural differences, their cultural competencies, making sure that we are listening to them and what they need. That's different for every community, and we have to respect that.
Right.
I was talking to someone, and I was talking about immigrant communities, and I said their perspective is so different because I will never know what it means to be an immigrant. So I have to listen to that community, and they have to tell me what they need. I don't have the right to infringe my belief on something that I have nothing I don't know about, right? You have to go out, you have to listen, you have to learn, you have to collaborate. What can we be doing different that would help your community, and your community? Those things may be different sometimes, and that's okay. But what can we learn and do collectively to expect as many people as possible? We're not always going to get it right. We're not always going to be perfect. But I know that I can try, and I know that I can talk to anyone about the issues in their community because I'm a good listener. I've been, like I said, I've been probation officer for almost 2 decades. I'm a great listener. But I'm also a fixer, a planner, a collaborator, and I will do that in CD5 as well.
Thank you. Yeah. And you say the other part is keep people accountable.
Yes.
What will you willing to do to make sure people is accountable for this fraud, for the crime? It's my experience that sometimes when we mention, oh, they call you racist because you want to keep accountable some, for example, let me tell you, I'm Mexican, right? I'm Hispanic, but I know and I'm very aware there is some drug cartels problems in my community. It is a fact. I don't think it's racist to acknowledge that. I don't think it's racist people telling me, well, some Hispanics people, because I know that is a fact. And I'm very happy to collaborate for people to get rid of these cartels members. I'm very happy ICE come and get rid of them. So how will you be collaborating to make sure that all criminals are held accountable regardless without being afraid to offend some people? You know what I asked him.
So I've heard this narrative in some by a few in community that if you ask questions about fraud or other things,
they'd accuse you too.
You're told that you're racist or discriminatory.
Right.
It is not racist or discriminatory to ask where taxpayer dollars are going.
Exactly.
It's not racist or discriminatory to say, you know what, I'm willing to pay taxes and contribute, but I want to know where it's going. And if 100%. I think it's going somewhere else, I have the right to say, where's my taxpayers going? We cannot have the narrative of calling things racist and discriminatory because then it becomes a talking point. There are some things truly that are racist and discriminatory. As a Black woman, I've been through many, many things in my life. To say things are just racist and discriminatory, that just to throw it out there, it diminishes things that are actually racist and discriminatory. And that's what I don't want to see happen in community. Again, there is different things that happen in different communities. It's never all one community.
100%.
Trump talking about Somalis or what did he call them, garbage? That's ridiculous.
I know.
Saying that they're all criminals, that's ridiculous. No one community wants to be labeled the worst of someone that does something in their community. Nobody wants that. But we do need to hold accountable those that are actually doing the harm. If you're convicted of an offense and you've done harm, you got to pay for it.
100%.
But whatever that looks like, it can look like many different things. It could be restitution, it could be rehabilitation, it could be treatment, it could be whatever it is. But you have to be accountable for whatever that action is that's appropriate.
Yeah.
We just can't just throw words out there.
Like in this case, I'm totally agree. I don't think any person needs to be called garbage. But I know it's good to acknowledge, we know the fraud. We know 87 people so far has been charged, and all of them are Somali. 7 only have not been Somali. So we know it's some problem there with fraud. That don't mean all Somalians are the problem, but definitely it is a problem in this community. So it's good to acknowledge that, and now to say, I know it, regardless they are Somalians, white, Hispanics, Black, if some people is responsible for any type of crime, they need to hold accountable. And I don't think it's racist to say it, because if a white person do it, everybody was saying like, oh, see, white racist. Like if a Black people do it, everybody will like a black, and I think we need to stop that bullshit. We need to stop it. We need to know we can be a united community. We can be friends. We can get along regardless your political views, your religions, backgrounds. We can all be friends. But the people, regardless their color or religion, if they commit a crime, they need to hold accountable.
I think that it doesn't matter what color you are if you commit the crime.
Exactly.
You're held accountable. I know that in the news, what we hear is a particular community seems to be overrepresented in these fraud cases, right? Whatever's going on, hopefully their community members are saying, hey, we're recognizing a problem. We should talk to our community.
Yeah.
Those type of things. That's for the community to deal with. What I don't like is people saying that everyone is doing something.
Right. To generalize 100%.
Once you generalize whole communities, that's harmful, because everyone is not the same. I'm real big on personal responsibility.
Right.
When you do something, you're responsible for that action.
100%.
If you do harm to someone, you're responsible for that harm. So I would hope that people push away from this narrative of blaming one whole community for harm. We see the news, whatever's going on. We have to also remember that the Feeding Our Future scam started with a
Oh,
white woman.
yeah,
So we're
yeah,
talking about,
yeah.
we're trying to blame everyone.
No, no, no.
So,
But it was one over. I mean, like I say, it's
right,
87 people versus 7.
right,
You
right.
know. So,
But my
but
point is
again, I'm
though,
not pointing to a whole community. I'm
right,
agree with you.
exactly, exactly. We
I'm
just have to
giving
be,
you the same. I'm reinforcing your input because I
yes,
think we have the same. We are not gonna blame a whole
right.
community because, like you, I have friends who are Somalians. They are incredible. They
Yes,
are
they are.
nice and the
Yeah,
most intelligent, prepared, and they are amazing,
yeah,
and I love them dearly, and we are very good friends, and themselves are very upset
yes,
because they say, how can they do that?
yeah.
They, and this is also for the Latinos. When some Latinos do something, it hurt our community
Yeah,
more,
yeah.
so,
I understand.
and that take me like, how, something that I'm very excited about you. You are very likable.
Oh,
I
thank you.
get to know you before we were in a meeting together, and that makes me excited to see a person who want to unite the
Yeah.
community. How do you plan to unite us, to not have more enmity
Mhm.
regardless or political views or religion views?
We have to find common ground. I think we all can agree. We want good benefits. We want to work, have decent wages. We want people to be able to take care of each other and their families. We want people to have health care that makes sense. They don't want to spend 30% of their income on health care and 50% of their income on rent or mortgages. They want to be able to live. What can we do to find common ground with our kitchen table issues, right? Affordability. The other things that we can't find common ground on, can we have discussions about where we go from here? But
Okay.
we have to find common ground first. And I think everyone wants to be happy, healthy, and thrive. How do we make that happen? Again, you're not always going to get it right, but you definitely have to have everyone at the table. You can't make decisions for whole communities without having them represented. That makes no sense, and things don't stick. We have too often people in power who make decisions at a small table with 10 people
Mm-hmm.
and say, I'm making decisions for whole communities, and then things don't work out because you didn't bring them in. And so my style is to bring folks in. How can we have conversations about our issues? What do you think about this? So in the next 2 months, I'm gonna do a lot of listening. I'm gonna be in community receiving information. I can talk all day about how I want to do policies, but I need to hear from the community because my goal is to represent them and I need to know what their issues are. Too often I hear people come in and say, we're going to do it this way, we're going to do it this way. Well, that way doesn't work for my community or many communities, and they don't change. They're rigid on their stance.
Are you willing to work with Republicans like other
I'm willing to work with
congressmen,
everybody.
uh,
You could
even
be
President Trump, because you mentioned it?
now.
You willing?
I'm willing to work with the legislature to get things done for CD5. Trump is a challenge in terms of his rhetoric to me. He is very rigid, but I know that I have to work for CD5, and I know that I have to get things done. So you have to collaborate when you can, and you have to fight when you have to, and we have
Well,
to figure out how to make that balance. Because
more
again,
than
I
half
want
of the
something.
country want him, right, and vote for him. I think it's fair to try to work with him the best way
We have to
because
work with
he
everyone. Yeah,
represents. We
we have to
have
work
to
with
work with
everyone.
everybody.
Yeah, even those that are the most challenging. If it means that CD5 will benefit, it means Minnesota will benefit. I need to make sure that I'm working with folks.
That's the best
But I
answer I
also
ever
need to
hear.
I also need to know that when it doesn't work and things are harming our community, that we speak up about that as
A
well.
100%.
You have to be able to do both. But
Yeah.
we can't be stagnant on one and not work on the other. You have to find common ground. I've talked to so many people who have told me we're not getting resources in CD5 because of the nature of our representation. That's unacceptable because we're paying taxes. Minnesota's a donor state. We pay more in federal taxes than we receive. We need to make sure that the people in the community get the services that they need. They need to get the programs that they need to make things happen for us. If that's being thwarted because people don't want to work together or find some type of common ground, what does that serve for us other than we're just waiting for nothing? We're just waiting for nothing to happen. And that's unacceptable to me.
What would you like to say, the last message to your district, the people?
I would tell
What do you
folks,
would like to say?
reach out to me. Let's have a conversation. I want to work with everyone. I want to truly represent everyone. Again, we may not always agree, But I know that the nature of the work that I do in the last 20 years of working with community, being in the forefront of trying to initiate and be impactful in change in my community, because it's a work in progress every day, that I've built great relationships with community. And I want to be able to share my knowledge and how we can fix problems. But I want people to be able to tell me how we can fix problems. How can we work together? How can we just be in community together? Again, the best way we move forward from this administration is making sure that we're all at the table, that we're all seen, that we're all heard, and that we're all valued. That has to happen. We can no longer have silos of people saying, well, I'm not getting represented, so I don't want to show up and participate in the process. When we don't participate, then we lose out. And that's unacceptable to me.
Yeah. Well, I can thank you enough.
Thank you.
Welcome to come back.
Thank you.
Next year, I know it's going to be a long process
Yes.
campaign. I wanted to tell you for what I am always around all the community. I talk to Republicans, Democrats, independents, people from outside. As an immigrant myself, I have a lot of contacts in Latin America and other countries in Europe. Yeah, I think Minnesota are fatigued for what has
Yeah.
happened in the last 6 years, and we really need some changes. And it's going to be hard for the Democrats to come back and really excuse all the disaster. But I don't think as Democrats or Republicans, I think we need good people, genuine good people, regardless the attack is, as an independent, Republicans, Democrats, or whatever. We need genuine people who really cares about the Minnesota people. And I wish the best luck to you.
Thank
Please
you.
reach out, come back, invite people to come. And
Absolutely.
I'm so happy that you are willing to listen to everybody, to be very approachable.
Thank you.
Yeah, we need someone to replace Ilan Omar, definitely.
Well, I'll say December 6th on Saturday from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. I'll be at
Oh, really?
Sovereign Gardens
Oh,
over in
good.
South Minneapolis. Come meet me.
On your website?
Yep, and my website, latanyaforcongress.org. Check out my website. I'll reach out. My contact information is on there. I truly want to hear from all the community to figure out how do we move forward out of this administration, out of the rhetoric that's going on in the community, out of people just feeling so upset. They just don't feel like they have any hope. And I want to be a person that brings hope back into community. I don't want this to be a process of, oh, everyone's just so mad. They can't work together. We need to find a way to move past that. And we need candidates that can move past that. We have to work together. It's not going to be
100%.
everyone's one way. So, and that being said, all community has to be represented. Like you said, Republicans, Independents, Democrats, those that don't show up, those are disaffected, disenfranchised. How do we get them all to the table? Because they're all paying taxes or getting services.
100%.
And they all deserve to be heard, no matter who you are.
100%. Latonia, thank you so
Thank you.
much.
I
Thank you
appreciate
so much to
Thank
our
you.
listeners. To have a beautiful day, and we come back for our next episode.
Thank you. Thank you.
I love